There is something about an amazing home that makes you experience something remarkable. It's a feeling that no simple words can explain and no rational mind can justify. In fact, words aren't really necessary because a feeling of love has grown. The imagination of a life already lived inside it has been awakened, and a distinctive yet indescribable X-factor is realised. This is a story about the journey of Carcalla Beach House, Blairgowrie, and I want to take you back to where it all began. And it's right here with this classic old 1960s fibro cement beach shack on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. Over the coming months, my family and I, with absolutely no building experience whatsoever, are going to help to turn this into $1 million property while saving thousands of dollars along the way. And we're going to teach you just how we did it. So come on, meet my family. And of course, welcome to Top Property.
Meet Dad. He's been in media all his life and he'll be my wingman throughout the project. Together, we'll film the entire build while getting our hands dirty as we work side by side with our tradesmen. And occasionally, he'll come up with a witty dad joke too.
Why does the chicken go to the gym?
Why?
To work on its pecs.
Is that it? That's it.
That's it. Do you like that?
It's hard.
You're camera shy, aren't you?
I am.
Why?
Okay, let's go.
Mum, well, she is a giggler. Hands-on wasn't really her thing.
Hi, Jen. How are you? Good, thank you. This is our home.
But she knows what looks good, and she'll help coordinate with our designers and suppliers to pull the project together.
Beautiful.
So, we're looking at some ideas. We're thinking of blinds. What do you think?
Can I smash through the door?
No, Nick, you have to put that in upside on. So it's a lot bigger.
I want to smash it.
This is Nick, and he lives interstate in Sydney, which means he couldn't make it for the opening family shot because of work commitments. Being my bigger brother also means it's his birth-given right to pick on me. Nick will fly down as much as possible to check in on the build and help whenever he can. My younger brother Tim isn't a fan of the cameras, but when his construction job allows him time off work, he'll be in to help us with the demolition and with the build too.
These
Two. That's it. Come on.
Together with my furry brother Bam, who is a shepherd cross kelpie who we rescued from the animal shelter as a puppy. And he'll be our site foreman, carefully inspecting everything is going to plan. And lastly, there's me. I'm Chris, and I made a show for community TV in Melbourne called Top Brands, which ended up being broadcast across Australia.
The Outstanding Factual Current Affairs or Interview Program.
And was nominated for a big award, which led me to Top Property, where my family and I have invested equally together to buy and transform this little old beach shack into Carcalla Beach House. Along the way, I'll explore amazing architecture. I'll meet with extraordinary designers and artisans making incredible products, whilst getting behind the scenes of cutting-edge technology. That all together will guide my journey through the world of design, on our adventure to create an amazing home. With Dad and I both taking a year off from our jobs to build this new home, we'll have just 12 months to complete the construction before we run out of time and money. So with that said, the clock is ticking and our time starts now. Welcome to Top Property. So this is where our story begins. Our humble little beach shack that has stood proud for over half a century. Its worn-out kitchen tells 1,000 stories from memories gone by and overlooks tired bedrooms fashioned with candy-striped carpets, all wrapped in fibro cement cladding, typical of the era. It's these vestiges that all attest to a lifetime of service.
So we're in the old beach shack right here, and as you can tell, it's pretty well worn. What's going to stay and what's going to go? Well, essentially everything's going to go. We're going to be gutting all of these internal walls right here to open up this big living space for everybody. The other thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting in a clear story window, which is going to bathe this area in glorious sunshine. So this right here is our backyard. At the moment you can see all there is this old asbestos cladding, which is actually going to come off. We're going to have beautiful big window doors here, an al fresco entertainment area, nice big deck, and the kitchen's going to come out from here, perfect for entertaining.
And it's this indoor-outdoor living that we Australians are famous for. Our new design, imagined with a wall of glass doors, will be the centrepiece that bridges our living room with our coastal-inspired backyard.
The other thing is we want to pay homage to the area, and the story of these old 1960s beach shacks essentially continues in this new home that we're wrapping around it, so it's a great story of rejuvenation.
And it's this same story of history fused with a modern vision that has shaped where this beach shack has lived. On the southern Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. In a seaside village called Blairgowrie, just a 1.5 hour drive from Melbourne. The southern Mornington Peninsula and its vibrant seaside villages like Blairgowrie have been enchanting visitors and locals for well over a century. The rich history of this area can be traced back to the first site of British colonial settlement in the state of Victoria, where in the year 1803, around 300 English convicts would be sailed here to start a colony at Sullivan Bay in the neighbouring township of Sorrento. Almost half a century later, the late Victorian era had arrived, and it ushered in a new dawn for this now famous seaside holiday destination. With colonialism of the southern Mornington Peninsula and Sorrento hallmarked by grand gestures of wealth and opulence. As the decades grew, so did the love affair of holidaymakers with this area. By the mid-1900s, it was ever more accessible and affordable as the post-war boom of the 50s and 60s heralded the good times for all. The great legacy of this period was the humble fibro cement beach shack. It was the quintessential holiday home in an era of beach picnics, bumpy dirt roads, and a lazy Sunday afternoon drive. A simpler way of life, one that can still be witnessed and experienced here today. As the wonders of these bygone days begin to fade, you see a township and a region that still abounds in nature's gifts. And sailing ships. A ferry that still connects the bay. And those same limestone buildings that are called home to the bustling summer crowds that come to share this playground all year round. You see, time hasn't much changed this area. If anything, it's enriched it. A new carnation of a former self. A wonderland for everyone. And our home will be at the very heart of this location. And with the planning and development works now getting underway for this new home, the very start of the project begins with engineering core samples that will underpin the future design and stability of the construction.
It's important to get this part of it right because everything else from here on gets built on top of what happens now. So if you don't get this part of it right, it's a little bit pointless spending a lot of money on your flooring and your curtains if you haven't got your foundations right to begin with.
This geological report will be the bedrock to our engineering specifications for the build to come. Its findings will underpin the depth of the foundations and the structural engineering design, which is important to give any home its strength and longevity.
90301.
Okay.
The other major task is the surveying of the land, vital for the construction blueprints for town planning, who, along with our building surveyor, require pinpoint accuracy about the contours and elevations of the land, plus the dimensions of the boundaries, necessary for our building permit.
This area was subdivided in 1958 when it created 200 to 300 lots in this whole area. So since 1958 in this particular street, there hasn't been one survey since then.
Out 5 mil.
With the help of GPS laser-guided systems, they precisely measure the land to map out the position of these boundaries and fences. And with these now marked out, the construction is ready to begin.
Yeah, this whole one is pretty good, I think. Both ends. It wobbles in and out. From end to end though, pretty good.
With the final green light from town planning, engineering and the building surveyor, the building permit is now approved. And we're ready to rock and roll. And to make way for this new home, my brother Tim drives in 8 tonnes of steel and hydraulic crushing power for what is a pretty quick meal for this beast. And this is where the clock officially starts ticking for the construction, which we've allowed exactly 12 months for in total. The art to this project will be all about knowing where to get involved to do the hands-on work, to save as much money as we can by doing it ourselves. With a local builder taking on the building contract for this new home, we'll have a special condition that lets us keep the savings we create by doing our own labour and arranging our own tradesmen, quotes and supplies. In doing so, we'll be helping to save as much money as we can, whilst also helping to keep a tight control of the budget along the way. Weighing up the cost of doing it ourselves versus using professional tradesmen on hourly or fixed price rates will be the balancing act of this project, as we try to save costs without ever jeopardising the construction quality or affecting the build time. As the dust settles and with a few last revs of the engine, the final branches hit the ground. With the site cleared in just a few short hours, all that remains are our nearly century-old Moona trees, which will act as ancient sculptures on the land.
2 hours ago, this was beautiful native bushland. Birds loved it, I loved it. Look at it now, just nothing here. But we're going to do something bigger and better.
You're sad, aren't you?
Oh yeah, a bit sad, yeah. I hate ripping down trees. Wow. It's a wasteland.
Look at this.
Nice, isn't it?
Not a bad backyard, is it?
That's it. Should almost make time to do this every day, shouldn't you? Like once a day, to remind yourself.
I think it's good for you, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Taking this empty yard and turning it into a thoughtfully inspired beach landscape, playing on the themes of the ocean coastline, just 450 metres from its doorstep, will help our local landscape designer Reese tie the new home to its local environment.
So when we're trying to mimic some of the natural environment here, so we want to see the different plants and where they're surviving, and how far up the coast they come. So as you can see, as we look over here, you can see a whole lot of the grasses, the stiper over there, that are on the very harsh front of the cliff there.
For all of its ruggedness, this coastline has an incredibly calming effect on you. And it's this look that we'll try to create in our own design.
So we've got the cushion bush,
Yep.
which are these blue. So you can feel them. You can see why they're called cushion bush there.
They're beautiful, aren't they?
And the stiper, which is another one. These grasses. Now you can see that they're surviving completely out here, pretty much with.
Very harsh, and not a lot of water as
exactly.
well, I can imagine.
Only the water that's falling down, and that's not going to last long in this sand either. It's going to go straight through the ground here.
And what type of soil have we got back at? I mean, is the type of geology of our block pretty similar in a matter of fact?
It is going to be, yeah. So I mean, you've got to have a little bit more topsoil over there from leaf litter and what's fallen off higher trees, but essentially you do have very sandy soil.
The plant life here is incredibly robust and has evolved and adapted perfectly to the harsh conditions of sea air and arid sands. You've got the beautiful sand dunes, the cups that we've got all around the peninsula as well.
So you've got the natural mounds that we're trying to replicate in the design as well. And you'll notice on those natural mounds, you're seeing one species that is prominent on those mounds, which is favouring those conditions.
And with millions of years of creation by Mother Nature's elements, there is simply nowhere better to get our ideas from. Trying to replicate this look through a playful interpretation of it, using sand dune-like mounds, and by planting indigenous species in the same types of naturally occurring clusters, all together will make up our design. There is also a very practical reason for using this coastal theme.
Not only is it beneficial for the environment and the local area to use these local plants, but it's hard to beat the look that this all creates as far as a beach look goes.
Next week we farewell the old shack. An excavator is back to clean up the mess, and the construction commences.